Hi, welcome to the next assembly video for the RepRap Prusa Mendel Iteration 2. In this video, we're going to install the end stop switches. Now, first off, I want to point out that that these end stop switches usually come with something like a 2mm hole. So the first step you're going to want to do is drill a 3mm hole into each one of the holes. You don't need to do both sides, just the side farthest to the paddle on each one of these, okay? And I already did this, so just go ahead and make sure that you have a 3mm hole so that an M3 bolt will be able to fit in through the hole. I found that it's the best way to mount these, but some people use zip ties or other methods, but I find that these end stop switches are actually really important. You need to make sure that they're solid. And the best way to do that is to drill a 3mm hole and run a 3mm bolt and lock nut through it. So anyway, before we get those mounted though, we do need to solder the wires onto the end stop switches. So I've got my soldering iron heated up here. Let's go ahead and get started. Usually the connections for these end stop switches are going to be on the outer ends. So they'll be on this side and this side, but you need to check to make sure for your particular switch. I can see here that these are labeled normally closed and closed. So let's go ahead and prime the wires first. Okay, and then prime the contacts for the switches. Okay, that looks good. And then go ahead and attach the wires. Now I have seen kits which come with wire clamps before, or I mean not wire clamps, but kind of like socket connectors for these. But please do not use socket connectors on these. Trust me, solder is going to be your most reliable method of ensuring that these stay connected forever, because you never want these to come apart. I've had them come apart and it just causes problems. It's terrible. Just make sure that you solder these on. Pull on them pretty good to make sure that they're going to stay on there too, you know. So, okay, one more to go. Yeah, solid. Those should never come apart. Okay, done with the soldering iron. Alright, now I'm going to start with the y-axis. Now first what you want to do is just dry fit this. You could essentially put this anywhere that you want, where you want it. What I find to work really well is I like to put this on the smooth rod, and then I'll put the switch up underneath the stop switch mount. And then what that will do in that position is when this when the bed comes over, the the bearing mount underneath the RepRap will trigger the end stop switch. And I like it right there. I think that's perfect right there. So to get this mounted, just drop the M3 14 millimeter bolt through the end here, and then put the other end through the end stop switch, and then on the other side, go ahead and thread in a M3 lock nut. And you want to make sure that these are really nice and tight, because you do not want this end stop switch to move at all. Trust me, it's such a nightmare to have these end stops moving around on you when you're trying to get things calibrated. Of course, the y-axis and the x-axis are not as important as the z-axis, because you need to make sure that the distance between your bed and your nozzle, never changes. And if your end stop switch is moving around, that could really cause some problems. So make sure that's really good and tight there. All right. So that's good. I have that mounted and I'm pushing on it, and I can tell that that's not going to move anywhere. So that's really good. So next we mount this to the smooth rod, and for that we're going to use a 25 millimeter. If you want to try to squeeze it on there, you could probably use a 14 millimeter M3 bolt and an M3 lock nut. There's actually a nut holder on this side of the end stop mount that pops in here. There you go. It fits pretty snug too. So. Oh, and you might want to use a washer on this one. And like I said, you might be able to squeeze on a 14 millimeter bolt here on this one. So this is going to clamp down onto the smooth rod here. I've seen people put this on the threaded rod, which is fine as well. Like you could mount it back here going out, and then you could put the end stop switch on top and then angle it so that it hits maybe the bed. This is where I like it. So I'm just going to tighten it up, and then once it can hold its own position, I'll go ahead and angle it out and dry fit it once more. Okay, and I can hear that it's hitting that switch, but I'll hold it upside down here for you in a moment after I get this tight, so you can see. And then once you get it into position, go ahead and tighten it up. Don't tighten it up so much that you crack the plastic. Make sure that does not move anywhere. Okay, that's good. All right, just dry test it one more time. Okay, that feels pretty good. Let me go ahead and put it upside down here so we can see it in action. Okay, so here's the end stop switch down here, and it's going to hit the side of the bearing clamp right here. So I'll go ahead and drive it down. Perfect. Alright, so that's the y-axis, that's done. Next we're going to do the x-axis. So I need to move this over here. Now for the x-axis, I think I'm going to mount this on the smooth rod, probably about right here. Let's see how that would work out. Okay, I think that would work out just fine. Although I'll have to put it the other way, like so, I think. Yep. Let me see, let me put the switch on here. Just make sure. Oh, that's not. Not quite gonna reach it. Let me try the other side again. Okay, yeah, that's going to work just fine right there. Okay, so I'm going to mount this on here in this direction like so, and I'm going to put the end stop switch on the outside, and then it should touch right here against the bearing mount on the X carriage. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get this connected on. Okay, that feels really good right there. Then I'm just going to go ahead and dry fit it one more time. Make sure that was going to be a good spot. Okay, that's actually coming in a little low. So I think oh, okay. You know, I made a modification to this actually. That's not going to work out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off. It's actually another way that I can get this mounted on here, which looks like it's going to work pretty well. I'm actually just going to go ahead and run the end stop switch right through the mounting bolt. Let's see. So using a 30mm bolt here. And go ahead and mount this right to the outside, like so. And that'll bring it up high enough so that perfect, yeah. That'll bring it up high enough so that it hits that mount. I'm going to try using a 25mm. Now I'll rotate this around so you can see it. Okay, yeah. 25mm is going to work really good on this. And I could actually cut this off if I wanted to, because I'm not going to need it. But I'll just leave it on there for now. I can always cut it off later. Okay, so I'm just going to tighten it up so that I can slide it around and get it into a good position here. Where it's just grabbing onto the rod, but not so tight that I won't be able to slide it around very much. And then I'm going to just test it out, make sure I have it in a good position. In this case, I don't, and I tightened it a little too much so I can't slide it around. There we go. I went ahead and cut off that excess. Okay, and then and now what I want to do is I want to move the X carriage over right to where, right before it hits the X end, which is right there, and then I can go ahead and tighten this up and keep it into, lock it into position. Okay, and you can see right in there. See where I have it mounted? And the way this works is it's going to actually bump on the screw for the fan there. It's going to stop it right before it hits the, right before the stepper motor on the extruder hits the X-end motor mount here. So that should work pretty reliably. And you can mount it wherever works for you, or whatever you prefer. It's really about your preference. It doesn't really matter too much. I'm going to go ahead and run the wire out and around and over the X-end here. Okay. Okay, the next one is going to be the Z axis. And I'll go ahead and set this on its side. Now the Z-axis is the distance. You want it to stop. You want to stop the Z-axis right before the hot end nozzle touches the glass bed. So that's what this switch is going to be for. And we're going to mount this over here onto the smooth rod for the Z-axis. So when this comes down, it's going to click against the motor, the X-end motor mount. And for right now, I'm just going to mount it to about right here. And then later on, when we calibrate the RepRap, we might fine tune this and adjust this to get it just to where we want it to be. But for right now, we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to get the switch installed. So I'm just going to go ahead and dry fit this. And it looks like if I mount it about right here, that's probably going to work out. So I'm just going to go ahead and get it secured. $14mm should be fine on this one. With a lock nut. Okay, that's not going anywhere. And then I'm going to go ahead and install it about right here, I'd say. Get that lock nut in there. going to go ahead and use a 25 millimeter. Just going to connect this until it starts grabbing on, and then I'm going to slide it around into the position that I like. Okay, a little too tight. Oops. Okay, and you know, it doesn't really matter where you position this, as long as it touches against the X end here and makes a click. Okay, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and mount it about like so. But you could mount it over on this side if you want to too. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to mount it right there because it's easier to get to the screw. Okay, that's good enough for now. Later on, when we calibrate the RepRap, we'll get that into the proper position. Okay, and there we go. Now we have all our end stop switches installed. The next step after this is the electronics. That's where I'm going to mount the electronics back here to the side, and then we're going to run all of these wires. We're going to put connectors on these and trim them to the right length, and we're going to get all of these installed over to the electronics, every single one of these. So that's going to be a long video. It's going to take some time to get all of these installed, and I'm going to demonstrate a couple of different methods too for how to get these wires crimped to the connectors. And so stay tuned, and after the next video, the RepRap itself will be finally complete. We'll have everything done, and the only thing that we'll need to do is install the software and do some calibration. And I'm going to show you how to do all of that, so stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.